Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In our last video, we learned how to brew a cheap Woolworths extract IPA using Galaxy and Eclipse hops. Fermentation is now finished on the IPA about 2 weeks ago, and then it sat in the chest freezer cold crushing for the last 2 weeks. Now it's ready to be transferred into a keg using a closed pressure system. So today, it's finally kegging day after a month-long wait. So I'm going to push this nicely finished beer from the Fermzilla through into a sanitised keg using a closed pressure transfer. Then I'm going to hook it up to the kegerator behind me here, and we're going to pour our first sample of the IPA and do a taste. Okay, so this keg is already sanitised and ready to go. I'm just going to transfer this sanitizer from this keg just into an empty bucket or pail fermenter. Then I'm going to dip all of my little gas and beer lines and posts into the sanitizer. Make sure that they're sanitized correctly before I start trying to transfer this beer from the pressure fermenter into the keg. All right, I'm just going to put this spinning valve on the keg just to see what PSI is in there at the moment. All right, it's around about 5 PSI. So I'm going to hook up the beer post. And that's just pouring the sanitizer straight into this fermenter here. So I want it all to come out and completely sanitize this keg.
Okay, so what I'm now going to do is I'm just going to thrash this line around in the sanitizer a little bit, as well as the beer posts, just to make sure that they're perfectly sanitized.
Okay, so now that that's all sanitized, I'm just going to check the PSI in the Fermzilla. So that's sitting at 8. And the PSI in the keg is sitting at about 1. Alright, so it's very important that we have more pressure in the Fermzilla and less pressure in the keg. So now I'm going to grab my gas line and I'm going to hook this up to what I want to transfer from into. So I'm going to go from the fermenter, and then you'll see that's going to fill up with beer. Then I'm going to put that into the keg, and that will start to push straight through this line into the keg. Now, to keep that pressure flowing, I want to set up the gas post in the keg and put that into the pressure fermenter like that. So then what that'll do is that's just a closed circuit now. So the beer is transferring from the pressure fermenter in the keg. The gas is being displaced through the top from the keg into the pressure fermenter. Alright, so now that things are well underway and the beer is slowly being transferred into the keg, I'm just going to drop the keg down a little bit just to make sure that it is sitting lower than the fermenter. That will allow gravity to help push the beer through the line a little bit quicker as well.
So here's just a little tip as well. So because the keg is about room temperature and the beer is nice and cold, as it fills up in the keg, we can see the condensation line to determine how full the keg really is there. It's difficult to see now, but that condensation line now goes right to the top of the keg. So the transfer is now finished, and the rest of that beer in there is just a bit of gunk that I wouldn't bother drinking anyway.
So now that that's finished, the beer line gets disconnected. Take that off, we'll clean that later. The gas line also gets disconnected. I'll go away and clean this, and I'll hook the keg up to the kegerator and we'll pour our first beer. Okay, so we've got the IPA on the middle tap. Just going to pour off a sample for us to review and taste. Alright, that's coming out at 12 PSI at the moment. The head on that looks pretty good. Looks a little bit hazier than what I was expecting. I suppose we can expect that from an extract can though. Now we'll go for a bit of a taste. Just give you a bit of a close-up there. You can see how hazy it is, how decent the head looks from that first initial pour. Okay, so it's now been about a minute since I poured that. The head is still pretty good, so the retention is not too bad for an extract brew.
Oof, wow, can definitely smell the galaxy in that. A lot of passion fruit smells. Not much orange coming through in the aroma. We'll have a bit of a taste, shall we? Ooh, slightly more bitter than what I was expecting. Definitely get that galaxy punch in there from the double galaxy dry hop. And just in that aftertaste there, you can just slightly taste the orange from the Eclipse hops. That's a pretty good extract brew, actually. Yeah, I could drink a lot of those. Would I brew this again? Absolutely. I think next time, just to change things up a little bit, I might drop back the hop tea from 20 minutes maybe to 10 minutes, just to see if I can drop that bitterness off slightly. Yeah, then I would definitely brew this again. It's actually pretty good for a cheap Woolworths extract IPA. Cheers.